That's funny. How much is walker? Hey! Just tell me that. I tell me. 6. 6 is cut.
Hey, this is what biology does. Sure can. How you doing, Kyle?
You hear me?
I can. It's all just getting started.
What should I say? Hello, everybody. Hi. Okay, so then it shows up there. Okay. Okay, I'm in there. Okay. So here I'm on. Welcome everybody. Lippy, how'd you do this? All right, get me on the. There you go. Thanks. Okay. It says 7:53, 7:53 now. We're up to 18 people. Remember, you can also watch on YouTube at tinyurl.com/Arizal class. Thank you. We're gonna have to. Okay, so all the participants, as you can tell, all the participants are muted except for the host. That's us here. And we'll get started in a few minutes. Our neighbors are roller skating by. Hmm? Here. If you're gonna help. And the people. Oh, Libby, how do I record in here? Oh, here's record. I'm going to go find them. I was worried about that. There he is. Okay, thank you all for your patience, and thank you for everybody who's already joined in the meeting, and everyone who is ready to start on time. We're up to 93 participants. We may hit a limit. I'm not sure. If we do, it can be watched at tinyurl.com/Arizal class. I am getting a few reports of people having trouble logging in here and also logging into YouTube. We'll do the best we can. Okay. It seems like we've hit the max. Our participants at 100. A few of our speakers aren't able to log in. Ask if a few people can switch to tinyurl.com/Arizal class and open up some space. Okay, we have tell them to go in now. We have some openings, a lot of openings. Thank you very, very much. Thank you all. Hey, welcome all to the Shloshim Memorial for our father, Yitzchok Kosofsky. My name is Chaim Kosofsky. I'm here in Long Meadow, Massachusetts. Our parents lived in Chicago more than 80 years, the city where they were born, grew up, and went to school. When it was clear our parents could not live on their own, they left Chicago and moved in with our sister and brother-in-law, Sari and Isaac Levitansky, in Simcha Monica, California. Our parents' plane landed in LA the night of B'dikas Chametz around 9 p.m. What do you know? Our father passed away 6 years later, the night of B'dikas Chametz around 9 p.m. For the accountant, he liked when his sheets balanced. He lived in California exactly 6 years, to the day and to the hour. In that time, our sister and brother-in-law have dedicated their lives to looking after our parents, coordinating medical care, preparing their meals, driving them to minyan and appointments, and much, much more. Only someone who has personally cared for an elderly parent can begin to understand what it's like. Our brother-in-law, by Isaac Levitansky, will read a letter sent to the family by the Lubavitcher Rebbe on the passing of our grandfather, Binyamin Kushner, 52 years ago, last week. I will now unmute Isaac. And then how do we get him into the thing? Oh, wrong one.
Okay. Shakayach Reb Chaim. This letter, the letter from the Rebbe. Let's make the stand by the reading of the Rebbe's letter. Baruch Hashem, Yudal Iyar Toshin Chavches, Brooklyn. Mishpachas Kushner Shlita. Tzarti l'shmeir Ptiris Reinu Binyamin al Vashalom Hamakim in Achmeskim Mitzech Shar Veltzim V'Shalayim. Mikan lahaba ach tei v'chesed yimtzaim tamid kol hayamim b'chavid v'vracha in the Rebbe's Helik Chsima. For a free translation, this letter is dated, begins Baruch Hashem, by the grace of Hashem, the 14th of Iyar, Tavshin Chavches, and it's corresponding to 1968 Brooklyn, to the family Kushner Shlita. May they live and be well. I was pained to hear from the passing of Binyamin Alav Shalom. May Hashem console you amongst all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And from now on, may have only good and kindness should find you all of the days. And the Rebbe wrote in with his pen, with honor and blessing, and the Rebbe's holy chesima.
Okay, thank you very much, Reb Isaac. This week, we celebrate Lag BaOmer, the day of the passing of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon taught that on a day a person passes away, all his activities in which he was engaged throughout his lifetime reach completion. The father took special interest in learning the hidden aspects of Torah publicized by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. About 12 years ago, he encouraged me to learn Shalah, work from the early 17th century. Because of our father's initiative, 6 years ago after Pesach, I was asked to teach a shir in Arizal. We started to study apples from the orchard 6 years ago after Pesach and just finished last week, 1,070 pages. It's very meaningful to me. We finished the book week of Lag BaOmer and the week of our father's Shloshim. We'll begin the program with reciting our father's chapter of Tehillim, chapter 90, led by grandchild Yisraelik Baumgarten in White Meadow Lake, New Jersey. Me? Yisraelik, I've unmuted your father's device.
You go for it. Feel my shek. Ishwali him madine marinato yisalonu bidar badar. Bitarim harm yuladu vatachel eretz sevel meela madela mata el. Toshi venishadaka vatemer shuvu bnei adam. Yalusonim beina kokim asmo. Yavar vashmer valaylo. Zramtam shena yu vabaker kechotzer yachalef. Baker Yatzis Vichalaf, Larev Yemelo Viafish, Ki Halina Vapacha, Vahamas, Hanifanu, Shata Bini Sena Nagdecha, Aluminu, Limar Panecha, Kiho Yaminu Panabevrasecha, Kilina Shaninu Mahegeb, Imation Sena Baim Shivim Shana, Vimig Verish Manim Shana, Virabam Amova Oven, Kigas Hish Vana Ufa, Mi Edea Ezapecha, Chioscha Evrasecha, Limne Semenu Ken Haida, Vinavilav Chachma. Shuva dined masevi nachim al avadecha sabeinu vabeker chasdecha nanomenis mecha b'chayimenu samchenu ki mesinisanu shnei Yisraelu ra'a yiroel avadecha v'alecha vadercha abinehem ineim adinelinu alenu masidinu kain alenu masidinu kaineneu.
Thank you very much, Yisraelik. This June will mark 69 years since our parents were married in 1951. Unfortunately, due to the quarantine, our mother is unable to join us on this Zoom meeting. We will recite a chapter of Tehillim, chapter 88, for her good health and long life, led by son-in-law, Rabbi David Abba Muchkin of Rochester, New York. David Abba, I will again share screen. All right, thank you so much. Fine. Since our father retired, he devoted many hours every day to study Torah. He shared with us interesting points that he learned, and he listened attentively when we shared with him. It brought him great pride to hear of academic accomplishments in Torah of his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. It's customary to divide 63 Masechtas of Mishnah among people to learn, finish on the 30th day, Shloshim, tonight and tomorrow. To the credit of our parents, more than 50 Masechtas were studied by members of our family. Our brother, Rabbi Yitzchok Kosofsky in Crown Heights, will make the siyum studying the last Mishnah from the book of Uksin.
Thank you very much, Chaim, and thank you for this honor of being able to being Messiah to complete the whole round of Mishnah. The letters of Mishnah is the same letters of Neshama, and reading the Mishnah and learning the Mishnah it gives a special special energy for the Neshama. So as we finish the Mishnayos, as Chaim mentioned, Father was always involved in learning Gemara. As I remember, we always loved sharing things with him. I'm going to do the last two Mishnayos of the whole Mishnah. The last one is the last part of Mishnayos deals with laws of purity and impurities. There are 7 liquids which can make something susceptible to become impure if that liquid touches like food or different types of vessels or different objects. It can make them that they could eventually become impure. And one of those liquids is honey. The second to last Mishnah says regarding a honeycomb, when exactly does the honey within a honeycomb, when is that able to make something else impure? And we have an argument here in this last Mishnah. We'll take a look at it inside. Chalais tivash, honeycombs, me'emasai mitames mishum mashka, when do they become susceptible to uncleanliness? That means when can they make something that be regarded as a liquid, that they can make something else impure? Beis Shammai says, when they start smoking the honeycombs, and so the bees start going out. Other people say that the word is also yaharher, when a person starts thinking about how they're going to get the honey out of the honeycomb, that already makes the honey within them considered a liquid that it can make something else impure. Beis Hillel says, Mishay Yirasek, when they actually break up the honeycombs and the honey starts pouring out, that's when it is considered a liquid. And for the last Mishnah, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, Asid HaKadosh Baruch Hu lahanchil l'chol tzadik v'tzadik shalish shmeyes v'asara elamais, that in the future, in the time to come, the world to come, the Holy One, blessed be He, will make each and every person inherit 310 worlds. As it says, Shenamar lahanchil oyaveyesh ve'isreitzeyam amale, because it says in Proverbs that may I choose those who love me to inherit yesh, and that I fill their treasuries. So the word yesh is a yud and a shin, which is the numerical equivalence of 310. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta, Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta said, "Leimatza Kadosh Baruch Hu kli machzik bracha liyisrael el hashalem," that the Holy One, blessed be He, has found no vessel that could contain the blessings for Israel, save that of peace. Shnamar, as it is written, Hashem oiz la'amo yitain, Hashem yivarech es amay v'ashalem, that God has given the strength to His people, and the God has given will bless the people with peace. So the idea of of this idea is that God will give everyone an inheritance. That means that the reward of when we complete the learning of the whole Mishnah, so the actual reward is this idea of 310 worlds, which means that, as the Rambam, the Maimonides, explains, that it means something which is way beyond anything that there is in this world. And this is as an inheritance, just like a person inherits something, even though they don't have to actually do something about it. They just inherit, they're just an heir. So the same too, when a person, tzaddik, when a righteous person completes all his work in this world, God gives him this merit of having these 310 worlds. And that happens through the idea of peace, which peace over here is oz. Oz means strength, which refers to the strength of Torah. And the last letter here is Bashalem, in peace, which ends with the letter Mem, which this coincides with the first letter of the Mishnah, which is also the letter Mem, Me'emosai Kairim Shema. That so basically all of our learning all is one cycle, and we should all see this Hashem Yevarech Es Amay Vashalom. Thank you, Chaim.
Thank you very, very much, Lippy, our brother Lippy. Okay, thank you. And Mazel Tov, and thanks to everybody who took a Masechta to learn the Mishnayos. For many years, our father spoke of his teacher, Mendel Kaplan, at the yeshiva, who made wine. In 1974, Rabbi Sholem Sklar moved out of Chicago. My father and I went to his apartment in Albany Park to pick up his equipment, his winemaking equipment, crusher, 2 or 3 wine barrels, and a very heavy iron wine press. We brought them to Rabbi Goodman's basement, where the first few batches were made. As recently as this past fall, our father still made wine with the help of our sister and our brother-in-law, Sari and Isaac Levitansky. Grandchildren, Dalman and Ita Gordon, would also come by with their children to help as well. And there were times that my brother Noach and my brother Lippy also were there at the time and pitched in, or helped more than that. My brother Rabbi Yitzchok Kosofsky, rector of Lubavitch Yeshiva Academy and head shliach of the lower Iyar Valley of Western Massachusetts, proudly continues this tradition, producing his own homemade wine under the label Zadie's Wine. my brother, Rabbi Noach Kosofsky.
Pour a little milk in the cup. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to thank Chaim for coordinating the Shloshim. We want to thank everyone that's participating. The downside of the virus that's going on through the world enables all of us to have a Shloshim, have a ceremony that really brings together people from all over the world at the same moment. So this is the upside of the virus. So it's good to see everybody and thank everyone for participating. I also want to thank my sister, Sari, my brother-in-law, Isaac, for showing all of us what it means to honor parents, kibbud av v'em. For the last 6 years, they have been unbelievable. They've been amazing in what they've done. And we all have learned from them, and everyone out there should learn how one respects parents and takes care of parents. My father, well, I wish to start. Baruch atah Adonai Melech haShalom Nebroi. L'chaim, l'chaim, everybody, l'chaim. I think my father's story boils down to one phrase: the power of one. My father was born in 1931, just shortly after the holiday of Purim, to my Bubby and Zadie, Bertha and Louis Kosofsky, Bryna and Littman. He was blessed with 2 younger sisters who are with us tonight, Francine, Brief, and Rachel Baum and Ed Baum. We're glad that you're participating. My father's very, very close with his parents, with his siblings. But my father's story was that he went off to Hebrew school down the street. It was run by Lubavitch rabbis. From that, he had the merit to have a special audience, a special visit with his class when the 6th Lubavitch Rebbe came to Chicago. And my father continued learning in the yeshiva. He was very, very inspired by Rabbi Shalom Posner, Rabbi Yosef Weinberg. They had a great impact on him. And when the yeshiva closed in Chicago, he continued at Beis Medrash LaTorah. Now it's called Skokie Yeshiva. And my father persisted. I think one thing I could say about my father is he had a lot of ambition. He just kept doing things, and he was in yeshiva. He got married. He was in college when my sister Nechama, his first child was born. He did everything. And what he did by his lifetime was that he kept doing things quietly. He was not a person that tells stories. He was not someone that embellished and told these beautiful stories. He just did things. He did, and he stuck to the facts. So he wasn't a big storyteller, but you know what? He made a lot of people excited. In shul, he got things going. In the community, he got things going. At home, one of his lines was, "Let's get going, let's go." He would just get everyone moving, get everyone excited. So I guess it's the ambition that led him to do many things in the Chicago community. When I was a young boy, this had a big impact on me. When in the early 60s, he started bringing Chalav Yisrael, special kosher milk, to the city. And there were a lot of hardships. I remember one time, it must have been 62, I was, I don't know how old I was, 4 years old, and 3 years old, 4 years old. And he had, in those days, everyone got milk delivered. The milk was delivered to your house. It wasn't sold in the stores for the most part. And in order to keep up, in order to try to bring in Chalav Yisrael milk and have people purchase it, it was really important that it was delivered. So I remember we had this old peach-colored car. I don't know what model, make, model, what year it was, but it was an old car. And the person that was delivering milk using my father's car. And unfortunately, one day he had gotten into an accident. That was the end of the car. So he got a new Impala, a brand new car, and the milk was continued the delivery was continued going forward. But that's the kind of person he was. And growing up in that environment, we always saw that our father just did things. A number of years later, he started the hookups. The first hookup of the Lubavitch Rebbe's talks were the first one was in 1970. And that week of the first talk, Yud Shvat, the passing of the sixth Lubavitch Rebbe and the leadership of the Iyar Rebbe, there was a very special Yud Shvat. That's when they finished a special Torah to greet Mashiach. And my aunts were sitting Shiva then. But the next opportunity was in Yud Beis Tammuz, the 12th of Tammuz, a few months later, commemorating the sixth Lubavitch Rebbe's release from prison, his birthday. And it was with the encouragement of some very, very good friends of his, people that he really, really cherished. They were a couple years younger, I don't know, 5, 6 years younger, but two friends, they should be mentioned. Naftali Berg and Benzion Shafran were people that really had a strong connection with my father. So throughout my father's life, the Farbrengens, which eventually ended up in our house for many, many years, every surprise Farbrengen, we heard the Rebbe in our house, the Chav Yisrael, my mother starting the organization for Russian Jews, free, was with his encouragement, his support. When the girls' high school started in Chicago, he was there. He put a lot of time and effort into that. And that was his life. We always saw him doing things. And from that, we learned something that the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe quotes in Sefer HaSichos, in Tafshin in 1940. The sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe just came to America. And one of his sayings was, a chassid is one who dedicates himself, gives up of himself for others to bring goodness and support for other people. This is what we learned. My parents had a large family when large families were not that popular. And thank God, the power of one, from one man, Mr. Yitzchok Kosofsky. And of course, my mother, Yibadlet Chaim Teim, she should live long. Together, they had one child, another child. It wasn't so popular. People were complaining, but they kept having children. And thank God, from these two people, this wonderful couple, they established, thank God, a large family. The parsha we read today, we start reading today in anticipation of the upcoming Shabbos, is the parsha Bahar and Bechukosai. And what's the message of Bahar? Bahar literally means a mountain. And God is commanding Moses to talk to the Jewish people, Bahar, at the mountain of Sinai, Mount Sinai. But we could refer to this parsha as Bahar, plain, mountain. So on one hand, my father was someone that was very quiet. Mount Sinai was the smallest mountain, but it was still a mountain. It was a mountain. But that teaches us that an individual, I keep emphasizing to our community here that my brother and I, we don't come from people that have long yichus, a long background, a lineage of many, many Hasidic rabbis for generations. My father's a regular person, a regular Jew. And look what he accomplished. Look what he accomplished. And that is our legacy. And the message is that you're a person, but each and every individual can become a mountain. Every single one of you that's watching and participating, every single one of you that had a relationship, an interaction with my father, or with one of us, one of his children, grandchildren, the message is it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but every single one of us can become a mountain. My father used to say to all of us, to the children, don't worry about money. Don't pursue money. Pursue your outreach work. We, those that are here alive, living, we take this to heart. Those of you that are listening, please take it to heart. Do something. Do an extra mitzvah. Learn from what my father did. Make it lively. Get people excited with goodness. And God willing, we should bring pride to him, to his neshama in heaven, and he in turn should give us all brachas, b'teva nigla, blessings down here in the physical world, and the main blessing of the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neach. Her father, believe it or not, was not yet 42 years old when the oldest daughter, Nechama, married Rabbi Chaim Prus. The oldest son-in-law, Chaim, has known our father for 47 years. And because of the closeness in age, he is also more like a colleague than just a son-in-law. Rabbi Prus is the head shliach, Eastern Massachusetts, and Rabbi and Mrs. Prus live in Newton, Massachusetts, where he is the senior rabbi of Congregation Beis Menachem. Let's see. I'm not sure if I unmuted the right device. Chama, is Chaim with you?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, and thank you for the introduction. As Chaim mentioned, I was privileged to know my father-in-law since the summer of 1972, which at that time, it was before the time we were thinking about getting married. And I would like to share with you an aspect which would be a little surprise to all of you. And I would like to speak about my father-in-law as a very, very rich man. And I'll tell you that during my course of work, I do meet with quite a few wealthy people, but I must tell you that my father-in-law was much, much richer than all of them. Do you ask me how? Well, I would like to share with you a short saying of a Rebbe in his first book that he wrote. It's called the Yom Yom, which is a short saying for every day. So for the day of Tes Nisan, the Rebbe writes, Jewish wealth is not houses and gold. The everlasting Jewish wealth is bringing Jews to keep Torah mitzvahs and bring into the world children and grandchildren who keep Torah and mitzvahs. And if this is the measurement of wealth, I must tell you, he was a very, very wealthy man. And honestly, the first time I came to Chicago in 1972, in the summer, we came in as Merkaz Shluchim. At that time, from the Rebbe's office would be sent out students from the yeshiva to different cities, countries, which at that time there wasn't that many shluchim around, and they would go visit communities and Jewish people. And I ended up from all places to go to Chicago that year. And for whatever reason happened, because other people were out of town, we ended up staying in the house, I think, for 4 days. We came in Sunday, I believe by Friday morning, I think we moved in to one of the rabbis in the city. So I had the chance from observing from close the kind of lifestyle and really what made him really move and do. And let me tell you, at that time in Chicago, there were several Lubavitcher Rabbonim with great accomplishments, people who were great Torah scholars, a lot of achievements. And here I come into a house, a typical American house, as Neach mentioned, do not come from a long dynasty of Lubavitch families. And I'm kind of standing and looking, what is going on when it comes to actual having the Farbrengens, having the Rebbe's talks? Where is it? In his house. When it comes something to do Chol Yisrael, that's him. whatever happens, somehow it looks like it's like underground central circuit, which makes the entire community move. And that was an observation, which, as I said, I was a bystander. And that time I had no idea that we were going to become related. I just, from the side looking at it, made on me a very, very strong impression. And there is, as we learn now, the Pirkei Avos, the ethics of our fathers, it says there that a tree that has deep roots and doesn't have that many, so to say, branches and leaves, but has deep roots, will withstand any storm. A tree has many leaves and many branches, but has very short roots. That tree, when it comes a storm, he has less chances to sustain. And it came to me this idea from what Judaism is really built, not just on the philosophy, but actually what you really do, where you, so to say, where you put the action where your mouth is. And that is, in simple words, what my shver, my father-in-law, was. I'm not sure if he was that involved in the fine details of Atik and Arich and so on, but actually doing what the Rebbe wanted to do and to see that things are getting done, that was his motto, and that was the specialty. And even though he was a person who did not get involved in politics, he was always instrumental in studying institutions, but he was always looking for something. He could not stand injustice, could not stand something which is done wrong. And as mentioned before, we had a special relationship. We were more a relationship of, so to say, of friends who were helping each other than just a relationship of somebody, so to say, as dealing with a child. And when there was issues with institutions and so on, we spent many hours together and give him this opportunity to stand for whatever was right. And he was very happy to be able to bring out and to come out with the so to say, with the proper outcome. Should continue to do what he really wanted to do. So in conclusion, I want to say that it was not only in one way direction. I must say that we could see that there was a special affection, special kiruvim in our words, what the Rebbe would have a relation with my father-in-law. As I mentioned to you, many know the stories, but just one of them, Simchas Torah, was one of the times where in New York, in the Rebbe Shul in 770, there was sardines felt more comfortable than the people in the synagogue from the tremendous pressure, there was unlimited people relatively to the space. So in order the Rebbe should go hakafot, dancing with the Torah, in the middle of the synagogue, they built, so to say, like a square from literally steel tables covered with wood on top and with chains that were really made for holding ships, chained down to the beams in order it should hold the pressure from all the directions to the center. Happened to be my place was there in the beginning of that square. When the Rebbe used to come in, he would come in right through that opening. And well, we got engaged before Sukkot. My father-in-law and his whole family came for Simchas Torah because our engagement party would be right after Simchas Torah. So I'm standing at my place. Somebody kind of mentions to me that, give a look, your father-in-law, your future father-in-law is in back, I don't know, 7, 8 rows in back. But to be honest with you, I wasn't that, I wanted to stay where I am. And in those days, there was a very strict rule. If you wanted let somebody in, you have to get out. I couldn't take him in together with me. It was very strict rules. We made it at that time very clear. It's your place. If you want to give it to somebody else, you come out. Well, anyway, I figured the pressure would goes on. You're not going to stand there for too long, so it'll be fine. So the first takeover, the Rebbe comes in, the Rebbe comes out, we're dancing and everything fine. Comes the second, the third, the fourth. I see he's still standing there in the back. By the fifth, by the sixth takeover, I know the Rebbe is to come into the seventh. At that point, even I couldn't take it anymore. I said, look, it's not really right. He's standing there 6 or 7 rows. I'm standing here in the front. So we were all knew each other at that time. I said, okay, we're making a switch. So he was led into my space, being the first at the table. And I moved back several rows back to the place where he was. And can you imagine, I was standing in that place, who knows, for 7, 8 years, and later on, many years later in that place. As the Rebbe walks in, and there is thousands of people. As he walks in and gives that one look at him, with a big smile, tells him, Mazel Tov. And everybody says, well, what happened? What happened here? Meaning, there is thousands of people. There is who knows how many engagements for this week. But the Rebbe saw him. My father-in-law, the Rebbe made a point of giving him Mazel Tov, and the same thing happened in many other instances, which there was always a special point that the Rebbe did appreciate and had a connection. And basically, the Rebbe's brochas, we see that he had that success, that he became so rich with such a wonderful family, which is basically second to none from any other great, and so to say, Yichas families. So his family is not in any way any less than those. And this is something which is, I feel honored to be able to have him as my father-in-law, and I want to give over the whole family and my kids that should always take his life and his way that he conducted his life as a teaching and an inspiration for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Chaim, for those warm and encouraging words. Your father's relationship with the congregation B'nai Reuven goes back to when he was a child, when he attended afternoon Hebrew school on the west side. It was with the Talmud Torah of B'nai Reuven that he was privileged to meet the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1942 and receive his blessing, which is printed in Bikur, Chicago, and in English, Touching City's Soul. After moving to West Rogers Park in 1965, our parents joined the shul. Our father was involved in many activities of the shul, and most notably of recent times, activities that were initiated by Rabbi Hertz, the shul's current rabbi, including serving as gabbai for many years. After they moved to California, Rabbi Hertz maintained the relationship, stopping to visit my parents on his trip to LA several times a year. I do want to give very quickly a story that happened Friday night. There was a minyan in the small shul maybe 20 years ago, and my father afterwards would make announcements. There's so-and-so has a Shalom Zacher at this address, there's going to be a bar mitzvah, mazel for bar mitzvah, and so on. Afterwards, people used to come up and ask him questions. What was the address? What was this? One week I was there visiting, and he makes the announcements, and he says, mazel tov so-and-so, our new baby girl, we're going to be a Shalom Zacher tonight at such and such, and everybody starts looking and laughing. It's a girl, there's no Shalom Zacher. And my father looks surprised, what? Oh, okay. Then he wishes someone else mazel tov for a bar mitzvah, and on such a day, and the bris will be at something. Everyone says, it's a bar mitzvah, there's no bris, what are you talking about? Everyone's laughing. Leaving shul, I asked my father, like, what's going on? He said, so that every week he made the announcements, and a lot of people were talking throughout the announcements, and afterwards, because they didn't listen, they would come over and they would ask him, what was the address, what time does this class start, and so on. So every week he would make 3 or 4 mistakes, and everyone would listen carefully to catch him on the mistakes. They all thought that perhaps that his mind was starting to go, and how could anyone trust him to do their taxes? But everything was all intentional, and in that way he said, everyone listen. Nobody after that would come to him, ask him what was the address for the Shalom Zocher and what time does the shir start. So without further ado, Rabbi Hertz.
Okay. First of all, it's hard, to speak about a dear friend Rabbi Yitzchok in this situation, and this gives the opportunity to mention also to the family, children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, that say Mechama in a sense, but definitely, even though it's hard, Rabbi Yitzchok is no longer physically with us, but it's nice to see the beautiful family. First, I want to wish Yibad L'chaim Tovim, Mrs. Yitzchok Kosofsky, his partner. She should have Arichas Yom Shalom Tovos and all the brachas. And it's also nice to see on the Zoom conference the whole mishpacha, not only the children and grandchildren, but some of the extended family who have met over the years of Simchas. And it's just, even though it's in such a situation, and I just want to say, the family should stay together on positive ways and positive Simchas. And, they used to say in Bnei Ruvain that every Shabbos they used to announce Mazel Tov to the Kosofskys, new Anikel. Everyone was just saying, we always knew Mazel Tov to the Kosofskys, and then people will find out what's the new Mazel Tov for. Is it this one, that one, who had the Mazel Tov? But Baruch Hashem, this is such a wonderful family. It's very special. And I just want to add to the point that, you see a family, the entire mishpacha of his children are involved in the Rebbe Shlichus. It's unbelievable, it's unique, and it shows what a life they led, and both Yitzchok and Mrs. Yitzchok Kosofsky, the chinuch and the love for Yiddishkeit and for Chassidus and for the Rebbe, the beautiful energy they imparted to the children. I just want to start off with our Yom Yom and say as follows. The days of Yom Yom is a very special Yom Yom, because as we know, it brings down my father, the Rebbe Rashab said, the Rebbe Rash told her, Elia Abla, who was a chassid, he was a person of business. He said to him, Elia Abla, I'm jealous of you, that you were able to go in the marketplace and bring Torah and mitzvahs and inspire people with unbelievable learning. And for you, the bigger the market, the bigger the business is. And God pays you with commission of children, health, and livelihood. And Baruch Hashem, the Eibishter gave these brachas because of the special people, the Kosofskys, and what they've done in their lifetime, and what they continue to do, is the idea of inspiring and being there in the marketplace and bringing godliness. That is the bracha you see on unbelievable blessings. As we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't stay a balchaya, God gives blessings on an abundance way, and we see in this case. I want to share as follows. Over the time, a lot has been said and will be said about Mr. Kosofsky, but I think to do this, I want to share a few things and tie it in Bnei Ruvain and how my relationship with Rabbi Yitzchok Kosofsky. A lot is said, it says there's 3 crowns: Kesed Torah, the crown of Torah; Kesed Kuna, the crown of priesthood; and Kesed Malchus, the crown of kingdom. It was the ethics of the fathers of last week. The first thing is Torah. Rabbi Yitzchok loved to learn. I remember we opened the kollel at night when I first came to town. He was a person who was into learning. He had a tremendous derech eretz for Rabbi Shusterman, and he was learning every shir. He loved learning. He spoke then in the learning about his days in Skokie Yeshiva, the old Gemaras. I mentioned in before, he even baked a cake for the kollel every night, but that was part of his action part. But learning was a big thing. As mentioned, I had visits within California when I did smicha in California. He'd always speak about the shir who'd go, the Yom shir, he would learn, and his chavrusa learning. But that was his excitement, the excitement of Torah, the excitement of learning, which was imbued. And that is the first part. Then we go to Kaser Kahuna, which is priesthood, which means action. And I want to share about action. We talk in life about people give tzedakah. But I'll tell you I want to preface this with a small story. They say once, a Rosh Yeshiva, someone went to a student, a person, and asked him, can I help you? Okay, you look for a problem. Person, I think you're in need. And the person said, no, I'm okay, I'm fine, everything is good. Then, a little bit later, a person came with bags and bags of groceries and went to the person and brought it, and he took it and helped the person. So the original person went over to that box and said, I don't understand. I also asked you to help you. So why did you say everything's okay when you saw you needed it and you took from the next person all those groceries and food? He said, it's very simple. You, he said, wanted to do a mitzvah. I am not a lulav. A lulav you do a mitzvah with. You want to do a mitzvah tzedakah. This person sincerely wanted to make sure that I have food. And that's why I felt that he wanted to take care of me. I felt that a lot by Rabbi Yitzchok, that they literally, Kosofsky cared for people. There's so many stories to illustrate that in so many ways that you can sit through the night and tell, but he really, the idea of chesed, cared, did for people on a way that Pashat cared to make sure that people were taken care of. And that is an unbelievable trait. Pashat, like, the Gemara says in Mabasa, it says, when you give tzedakah, you get 10 blessings. Hamafaisai, when you appease them, when you give it with a warmth, with a care, with a concern, you get 11 blessings. That was the Kosofskys. That's what Yitzchok and the schus to Mrs. Reisa Kosofsky, she was healthy and well. That idea of his giving was an unbelievable level of giving, and it was special. I can tell you in small things. I remember one of the big events was Rosh Chodesh Kislev, and he was the manager, the cook, the CEO of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Rabbi Maskus al arranged the speakers. Rabbi Yitzchok will be the one who would arrange the food event, and maybe the waiter under him was Reb Chaim Hech was serving the food. But I remember, I'll tell you a few small things which I heard, and I want to share this. That it wasn't just the way he did it, that he made sure not only there should be an event, cared and made food, and for weeks before. I'll explain another way. Rabbi Yitzchok liked sales. He was an accountant, but also when it came to money of head of meisters, of institutions, he cared for every dollar like its own. Whether it was in Chodesh Kislev, whether it was in the high school, wherever it was, money to him, community money was precious. When I saw this, I saw he took care of the books. He really cared for the institution's money. And it came to Chodesh Kislev, for weeks before, he would stock up food and find sales and coupons for weeks before, in order not to waste any money from the institution, and then have the best, most exciting meal, an exciting program with so much love for the Rebbe, for the community, for the Rebbe, for what the day represented of the joy of Hasidim on this great day. And this is how I saw, it's one example of many examples. Then we go Kasa Malchus. Kasa Malchus, the leadership. I know it was mentioned before, the different things, Chav Yisrael, Pabrengens. I can tell the whole campus of the house, but I can tell you in my years the idea of leadership. When I first came to Bnei Ruvain, it was not an easy transition in my involvement, and I can explain it very simply. You had the older crowd, and then you had the Chabad younger crowd, and it wasn't easy. There was a lot of where the shul is heading and everything else. Yitzchok was the bridge between the older and the younger. He was close to everyone in shul from the older crowd and everyone's best friend, but he's also part of the younger crowd. And he had this young youthfulness, that he always had this excitement and wanted to always bring joy and young and everything, whether it was in Hakafat Simchas Torah, whether it was announcements, whether jokes in the shul, whether selling aliyahs, it was part of the novelty, seems go out there and sell kafas or give out the honors. It was always an excitement, which was really another chelik of this leadership. And I can say in these ways, that's another thing, Casa Malchus, you saw so much leadership. I know the history of Chicago, and was probably, you can say, in many ways built, not only Chabad Chicago, in many ways put a lot of energy in the broader Jewish community of Chicago, was one of the pioneers in so many aspects. But it was continued. It wasn't like I did it once. It wasn't until when a story, 30 years ago, this is what I did. When I came there, he had the same energy. He was doing things till his last day in Chicago. And even when I was in California, we met, he was inquiring, what's with this person? What's with that person? Okay, you know what? Here's a check. I want to sponsor Kiddush Shabbos next week in the shul. He had that continuous connection and excitement of leadership in Chicago. So to that, I would say as follows, as we stand here and with all these great qualities, there's so much to say. And we're coming, it's not a coincidence with that right now. In going to Lag Ba'omer, and we said the day he was in Allah, you saw the great work, sitting with Chusim here, which are unlimited, and many know, and even in the last years in Chicago, there's Makarav, many people he brought close to make people feel welcome in shul, and many people who grew in their Yiddishkeit and grew in the growth in the Chusim of Yitzchok. I just want to say is so the main thing is Kesa Shem Tov El Al Gabeim. It's the good name. And the way the Rebbe explains it, it's not the good name, which means that it was actually his name, meaning the good name, the honor. Yitzchak didn't need honor. It was the good name, which was the application of all these levels of Torah, Kahuna, Malchus brought together. So I want to conclude as follows. To us here in Chicago, to the community, to Bnei Ruvain, Rabbi Yitzchok is always a role model. If you want to look at his aspiration of someone who has really brought so much Yitzchok, tzchaik, laughter, and so much simcha, and so much happiness to the community, I want to add on behalf of the Chicago community, give a special bracha and blessing to the family. They should have many simchas, blessings of health, of happiness, of chasness. We merited this last visit in Chicago was actually a visit where the Kosofsky family made a simcha in Chicago. But the main thing is it should be a simchas. And when we merit, as we know, I just want to say is it's kind of difficult to imagine that here somebody who was so full of life will be in a Zoom. But on the other hand, we know we are moments before the redemption. We are moments before Mashiach. So all this is temporary. All this is a short trip. A short visit, and Yirtz Hashem, the continuation of all his good work will lead us to the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu.
Rabbi Hertz, thank you very, very much. Those inspiring words. My father was involved in many institutions in Chicago. One of these is the Cheder Lubavitch Hebrew Day School. The Cheder today is a thriving, well-established school with hundreds of students, Kanai Nahara, and several divisions. It began as a playgroup of a few toddlers in someone's basement, of whom our youngest sister, Dvori, was the oldest child. The growth of the Cheder is due to the vision and leadership of its director, by Yitzchak Wolf, worked with our father on many projects and has remained a close friend, keeping in touch even after my parents moved to California. 1 minute, I'm going to have to. Right, Wolf, I hope I found the right device. You're unmuted.
Yes. Good evening, and thank you, Reb Chaim, for giving me this opportunity. What are the qualities that accurately describe a person like Reb Yitzchok Olav Shalom? I think the Rebbe Hayom Yom actually describes Reb Yitzchok. In a Yom Yom of the 12th of Tevis, the Rebbe writes, I will read it first in Hebrew and then translate it. V'zehu ha'ikar b'zman hazeh, bi'ikveis de Mashiach, sheloi leile chacher ha'seichel v'tam v'das, ki im lekayim ha'torah v'ha'mitzvahs b'tmimis, ve'emuna pshuta b'elokei Yisrael. The essential thing in these times of the footsteps of Mashiach is not to follow intellect and reason, but to fulfill Torah and mitzvahs wholeheartedly with simple faith in the God of Israel. Rabbi Yitzchok was a man, all those who knew him, a man of a few words, and he was Mekayim de daber ma'at v'asei harbe. He was a man that was able to do without spending too much time deliberating, discussing. He was a man of action. I would like to share with you, perhaps briefly, my relationship with Reb Yitzchok. Going back 38 years ago, the few Chabad families in Chicago deliberated the importance, and perhaps the time has come to start a full day school. Under the leadership of the Reish Shloshim, Reb Daniel Moskowitz Alav Shalom, who took the lead in this project, but he needed several laymen that will have that inspiration and the understanding and the vision of the importance of such an endeavor. And from the four people, and I should name all of them, was L'Reish V'L'Rishena Reb Yitzchok Kosofsky and his wife, Yibadel Chaim Tevim, Mrs. Yitzchok Kosofsky, and it was Dr. and Mrs. Hecht, and Mr. and Mrs. Zimmerman, and Mr. and Mrs. Lowenstein, who many years ago, they moved out of Chicago, but they were primarily involved, and they were the Ruach Chaim behind this whole thing, especially Reb Yitzchok. Although most of his older children, or all of his older children, studied in different institutions, it was before the founding of the Cheder Lubavitch. Nevertheless, as was mentioned, his youngest daughter was involved and was a student, and he gave everything he had in order to make sure that the Cheder thrives and is successful in every way. I would like to point out that throughout the years, when we used to have numerous meetings, especially the first several years, Reb Yitzchok was a man of reason and tremendous encouragement. He always used to get, at times of meetings, let's get the project moving, let's get everything moving. There'll always be money, don't worry, we'll get there. And he was always a tremendous voice, not just of reason, but encouraging the Anhola and the staff of Cheder to disregard the difficulties and the challenges that we may encounter. I have to mention that at the beginning, at least the first 25 years, and even now, Yiddish was the main language of the Cheder. Mrs. Kosofsky soll gesund sein, always encouraged instruction in Yiddish, and she was always there to help out and always wanted to volunteer her time and subbing at Cheder to make sure that the children of the Cheder do get the Yiddish quality, which was so much at the time front and center of Cheder Lubavitch. This was 6 years ago where we decided, Bashkacha Protius, that we should honor the founders of Cheder Lubavitch. And of course, what came to mind, L'Reish V'L'Rishena, the ones that were there with us from day one, which was Reb Yitzchok Kosofsky and his wife, Reitze, soll gesund sein. And I brought to the attention, at least to one of our donors, who's a major philanthropist in the city of Chicago, and I knew that this will resonate with him. I said, you know, we'll be honoring Reb Yitzchok and Reitze Kosofsky. And this happened to be a fellow by the name of Eric Rothner, which is a major philanthropist in the city of Chicago. And his first response was, after hearing all of these that are being honored, he said, Reb Yitzchok and Yitzchok Kosofsky, the whole city has to honor them, not only for what they've done for Cheder Lubavitch, for everything that they have done for Yiddishkeit in the city of Chicago. There was a tremendous feeling of excitement and enthusiasm that we will give credit where credit is due. And people did come out both in the form of ads and greetings and whatnot to extend their tremendous appreciation to this wonderful couple. And of course, it was Reb Yitzchok who was always extremely thankful for everything that was done in the form of recognizing all of the things that he has done in the community. And there's several conversations that I did have with him while it was moved on to California, was always, which was mentioned before, a tremendous interest in everything that was going on in our community, and especially in our Cheder and the growth of Cheder. I want to conclude by giving the family a bracha that the Rebbe should help, that Reb Yitzchok Olav Shalom should be a good better for the whole mishpacha, especially for his wife, Soll gesund sein, Mrs. Yitzchok Kosofsky, and we wish her arichas yomim v'shanim tevis. And the memory of Reb Yitzchok should be a guiding light, not only to his immediate family, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, but both to our community, who he has lived here for basically most of his life, and all the people that he has inspired and he has assisted in so many ways. We are forever grateful. Tehei Zichrei Baruch, Tehei Nishmasei Tzura B'tzrei Rachayim. And again, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Wolf. Those comforting, uplifting, inspiring words. We were talking in our one of our family groups today that apparently I'd never realized before. My father was one of the founders of AFTA, Association for Torah Advancement in Chicago. I found a paper a few weeks ago, a program. I think the second dinner was done either by AFTA or a forerunner of AFTA, and I think also they're able to get a letter from the Rebbe for one of the early dinners. Rabbi Daniel Moskowitz came to Chicago about 1976. Of course, I remember him. He's a native Chicagoan. I remember him in the house. Yet as a bacher, I think he learned with my brother Neach for bar mitzvah, and so I remember him stopping in when he came, and he started the outreach activities that he worked on. My father was involved with him. He would consult with my father, and I'm aware of a number of times that my father was able to give him support with connections or other things. And we don't have a lot of details on that. My father didn't talk much about it, but we don't know from little pieces here and there of his involvement. Rabbi Neil passed away about 6 years ago, tragically, just a month before my parents left Chicago. Today, his son, Rabbi Meir Shimon Moskowitz, has stepped into his father's position, and we've asked him to also address this meeting.
Chaim. When we talk about the legacy of an individual, so we typically use the expression that we find in Gemara, Ma zare b'chayim, afhu b'chayim, that the legacy of an individual, the life of an individual, continues with his children. And either it means to children from him. I think in this case of Mr. Kosofsky, the legacy lives on in the whole city. It's not just family, it's not just students, but anyone in Chicago, the Lubavitch community, the broader community, as we heard so much, his Chaim, his life continues by all the activities that he instituted, both that was mentioned and many more that probably many people don't know about it. Personally, as a child, announcements Friday night, I don't remember the joke about mixing up the Shalom Zacher and the birth of the girl, but I remember the excitement. The announcements were said with such excitement and chayas, which led right into Rabbi Yael Zimmerman's niggin, and this was something that we all lived with. And the hookup Farbrengens as a child also, just to see someone that knew how to take apart the telephone and knew what wires to put where, it was fascinating, but it was all done in a very quiet way. One of the things that what was not mentioned yet, and it connects, I believe, also to Mazare B'Chaim, is his involvement in the Nusach Harishul, that until the shul was barely functioning, but he kept the shul alive, Yom Kippur. And in fact, after the shul closed up, he was involved in the continuation of the shul. My father started Beis Menachem, which was called Beis Menachem Nusach Hari, a continuation from that shul, and he brought over some of the shtenders and some of the things from the shul itself to continue that shul as well. About a year ago, when we were working on the project of translating the Bika Chicago that was mentioned, and the Kosofsky family was eager to get involved and help out with that project. And the Hakdasha that they wrote, I think, sums it up. So I'm just going to read this few lines here, because I think this is the essence of what was mentioned until now. So it says it's in honor of Rabbi Yitzchok Eliyahu and Yitzchok Kosofsky. Rabbi Yitzchok was part of the Talmud Torah class that had Rebbe in Chicago. Our parents made the Rebbe and Chassidus a central part of their home and were instrumental in establishing the Lubavitch community in Chicago. And this is something that continues to flourish and expand based on the strong, dedicated, selfless Mesiras Nefesh and Salang Iyar, Mrs. Kosofsky established. And we should continue to learn from his ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Moskowitz. And those warm words, next we're going to do home. And wish you much hatzlacha in your role as the head shliach in Illinois. And a lot of hatzlacha. Thanks. As many of you know, our parents did not talk a lot about what they wanted to do or what they did. When they saw something that needed to be done, they just did it. Our sister, Minna Gordon, is a talented writer who has much of her work published. She wrote a poem after our father passed away. It will be read by her grandchildren, Etty Cyrilnik and Shana Goldsweig in Melbourne, Australia.
What do you do? Stop here. Stop here, yeah.
Okay, we're trying this again. We're trying to get it right. Please bear with.
Doing what is right. School was over. It was time to play. But as Zadie didn't stop, he was on his way. 2 hours each day he went to learn. For Hashem's Torah he did yearn.
He didn't argue, he didn't fight. He just went on doing what he knew was right.
All of Yisrael milk? People asked whatever for. In Chicago, people drank any milk from the store. But with the bracha of the Rebbe, backed by Rebbe Meisels too, he provided Chol of Yisrael, though the buyers were few. Union thugs threatened to turn over the truck, but Zadie would never let himself get stuck.
He didn't argue, he didn't fight. He just went on doing what he knew was right.
Nosach Ari was the Rebbe's shul. Zadie started going when it was quite full. He was chazan, Bal Korah, and the shofar had blow. He took the kids along, there was far to go.
He didn't argue, he didn't fight. He just went on doing what he knew was right.
Many years later, B'nai Reuven was the place. As Gabbai of the shul, Zadie served with grace. Aliyahs he gave to all. No one felt left out. Greeted with a smile or a joke, no doubt.
He didn't argue, he didn't fight. He just went on doing what he knew was right.
It would take at least a week till the Rebbe's words were read. How much better to hear them just as soon as they were said. So hookups were broadcast as soon as Zadie was able. All our Nash came to listen at our dining room table.
He didn't argue, he didn't fight. He just went on doing what he knew was right.
A Chabad school in Chicago? An impossible feat. But Zadie never ever considered defeat. Working hard for the high schools and Cheder too. Nothing would stop him from doing what he felt was true.
He didn't argue, he didn't fight. He just went on doing what he knew was right.
In Chicago, it was rare to see a family our size, and having babies after 40 was not considered wise. 3 generations later, we can proudly say, here's an army of Hasidim to bring Mashiach today.
He didn't argue, he didn't fight. He just went on doing what he knew was right.
Moving to Simcha Monica, leaving everything behind, must have been daunting, not knowing what he'd find. But soon he was quite busy, with a chayas heated shine, learning and davening, and making Zayd's wine.
He didn't need to argue, he didn't need to fight. Everyone acknowledged that he just was doing what he knew was right.
Yitzchok Kosofsky did much more than all this, you know. Now it's time for all of you to do the same and show.
How a chassid doesn't argue and a chassid doesn't fight. He just goes on doing what he knows is right.
Thank you so much, Betty and Shayna. Excellent job. As my father said, slow, loud, and clear. And I apologize to the audience for the technical difficulties. Baruch Hashem, the rest has gone well. My father befriended many people in Shul and the community, exchanging light banter with people of all ages. One of his old friends is Yael Zimmerman, a neighbor, a friend, and fellow board member for various organizations. Yael, you're on.
Things have a way of going full circle, sometimes turning around in unusual ways from a big circle. When Chabad started in California, besides Rabbi Reichik, there was only 4 rabbis. And my main teacher was Avram Levitansky, alav shalom. And Isaac, when I first met you, you were about 2-3 years old. And when I left California, you were 5 years old. And I can tell you, you're not half the man now that you were then, or you're not half the man then you are now. Then I went to Morristown, and also rabbis and students, the same as in California. But when I got to Chicago, this was the first time I met people who were not just rabbis, Chabadniks who were business people. And when I met many of them, the one that stood out of all of them, of course, was Mr. Kosofsky. And by the way, we never called him anything but Mr. Kosofsky. It couldn't have been, we call his first name, it was Mr. Kosofsky. He was a role model to not only to me, I'm sure to others like Dr. Hecht and David Grinker. We looked up to him. He always used to call himself the youngest of the oldest of the youngest, as was said before by that he was younger than the Rabbanim, and he was older than all of us. But we looked up to him, not by what he did. We knew all those things, the Chalav Yisrael, the hook up something, but how he did it. He did it in a way that was quiet. He did it in a way that was unassuming, but we knew it was emastika. We knew it was for real, and it was something that you couldn't imagine. For example, I'm in the real estate business now, and I can tell you, in his house, I know it's shocking, he didn't have granite counters. And even more shocking, he didn't have stainless steel appliances in there. A simple ranch house, raising all the kids, because that's the way he was. All the something was given to the Mises. In fact, one of the young Gevirim, just a couple of years ago, told me that when you guys, and he meant the Hecks and the Kosofskys and the Zimmermans, when you guys were younger, all the extra money you had went to the Mises. We want bigger houses and fancier houses. And he said it. He said, I know it's not something, but something. When we saw the Emes and the Kosofskys that they did things of how they did it, that was the most important thing. Just a couple stories I'll mention of things we did together. It was mentioned that one of his things that he loved was the Sudas Hodah. And instead of just going there, I always said, Mr. Kosofsky is my close friend. I'm going to go in the kitchen to help him. So I always did the kitchen. But one year I took it away from him because my mother, alav shalom, passed away on Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan. So on Rosh Kislev was Shloshim. So I made a Shloshim in Ronnie's restaurant. That time was the kosher restaurant. But I made it up to him because the main speaker was Rabbi Krus from Boston. And so we worked together. There's one year that I taught in his basement, a class of boys, and he was hardly around. It was always Mrs. Kosofsky. But when it came time to the end of the year, I said, we've got to get a present. She wouldn't have taken a present, we know that, and he wouldn't have had a present, but we said something that we're going to give to him for all the work that she did. And that's when we gave him the tallis bag with the 770 on it was the present that he got, even though she was the one who did all the work. Finally, in the years after most of my children moved out of the house and most of the children moved out of his house, my wife and I went many Friday nights dinner. It was just the four of us into the Kosofsky house, and it was such a joy to be able to share the times together in the house. Your father did all the work there, as he always did. He went to the kitchen, he came home, he served the food, he cleaned the table, and something that was great joy to share together. Therefore, I want to make sure that we wish the family only goodness and joy together. Ach tov v'chesed from now on.
Thanks so much, Yael. And things in your family and nachas from your children and grandchildren. Many of our parents, children, and grandchildren have made repeated trips to Simcha Monica the last few years to visit and to assist in caring for my parents. Of course, first is the one who didn't have to travel. That's our nephew, Mendel Levitansky, who worked hard with his parents to take care of my parents. But among the others who traveled to get there are three Chain boys who are studying in 770, who spent days in the hospital and rehab with Bubby and Zadie, even sleeping there night after night. The younger brother, Shammai Chain, in Buenos Aires, will finish our program with chapter 118 of Tehillim. The reason why we chose this chapter is because family gatherings, that's in the olden days, before anyone heard of Zoom, our father would often declare, Odu Hashem ki tov, ki liolam chasto. Praise Hashem, for he is good, for his kindness is everlasting. This chapter begins and ends with this favored verse of our Father. We'll have to unmute Chains. Here. And I will open the Tehillim for us all to say along.
Which parak? Hoidu ladinoi ki toi ki loilom chasdoi. Yom Adonai Israel ki loilom chasdoi. Yom Runo veisaren ki loilom chasdoi. Yom Runo ilay Adonai ki loilom chasdoi. Min ha-meitzar karosi yoroni v'merchov yo Adonai li loiram mayaseh li adam. Adonai li be'izroi v'ani erev esainoi. Tev lachaseis b'Adonai mibteach b'adam. Tev lachaseis b'Adonai mibteach b'ndirim. כל גויים סבבוני בשם אדינוי כי המילם, סבוני גם סבבוני בשם אדינוי כי המילם, סבוני חדברים דיחו כאש כעצים בשם אדינוי כי המילם, דוחוי דחיסני במפועל ואדינוי עזרוני, עוזי וזמרי עושיו ויהי לי לישוע, כל רינו וישוע בעולי צדיקים, ימין אדינוי יסע חויל, ימין אדינוי רוי מימו, ימין אדינוי יסע חויל, לא ימוס כי אחיה ואספר מעשה יום. יעשה ישרני יום ולמומס לא ינסונוני, פיסחו לי שערי צדקו ויבוא מוידי יום, זה אשר לאדינוי צדיקים יבוא יבוא, אוי דחו כי הניסוני ותהי לי לישוע, אבן מועשו הביינים היסו לריש פינום, יייס אדינוי יסו זויס אין נפלוס בינינו, זה היום עשו אדינוי נגילו ונסמכו בוי, אונו אדינוי אישי אונו אדינוי יצליחנו, ברוך הבא בשם אדינוי בירכנוכם מבייס אדינוי, אל אדינוי וירד לנו יסלו חג בביסין מלכמס המזבח, Eliata veidako liyaya rememako eidu ladinoi ki toiv ki loilom chasdoi.
Thank you very much, Shammai, and to the Chain family in Buenos Aires for your help. This concludes our program. I would like to thank everyone here, our audience, for your support, your condolences, your memories. I should also point out that my mother has been listening to this meeting through the magic of Zoom and the internet. If you have anecdotes about our parents that you'd like to share and haven't yet done so, you may send by email to Yitzchok Kosofsky at gmail.com, or send one of us a voice message by WhatsApp, and we will be sure to share with each other. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you to the speakers for your inspiring, encouraging, and comforting words. Thank you all. Suras Tevis and a Freilichen Lag Ba'omer.